Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the lab. I got my man Kimanzi Constable in the house today. He's in the lab with us and he is ready to drop some science. I actually had the privilege of meeting Kimanzi this year at Podcast Movement. Incredible dude, doing some incredible things, and he's always out there helping people do the same. How you doing, Kimanzi?
This interview, it kind of feels like this is like a college radio show or something. You got the college gear in the background. It's just me and you like on this little screen. This is like we're in college again.
Right. That's how I want it to feel, man. I want it to be loose. I want it to be loose. So you've actually done some pretty incredible things in a relatively short amount of time with these guest posts and getting on podcasts. And I thought I'd have you on to really lecture and to school people with this, but maybe give us a little bit a snippet of your background, because I think the story is very relevant to where you've come from today, and it gives people some insight into that they can really do the same.
So the Reader's Digest version, and I want you to understand if you're listening to this is just Reader's Digest. So there's a lot that happened in the last 4 years. But I delivered bread for 12 years. I didn't understand, it was my business. I didn't understand how to run the business. So I ran up $180,000 in debt in the business. And because of the hours of the business, I developed some bad habits and I was 170 pounds heavier than I am now. And so come 2011, I'm 180 grand in debt. I'm 170 pounds overweight. My wife and I were kind of going at it all the time because of all the problems. And I just sat there on the living room of a friend's house, just crying, like not knowing what I was going to do next. Like I didn't have any clue. I got after about a couple of days of crying. I'm a crier, by the way, so I don't think I'll cry during this interview. You never know. I'm not making any promises. After 2 days of crying, I got back up and I'm like, I gotta change my life, and if it's gonna change, I have to do something about it. So I went to Half Price Books. I went in like the motivational section and I found a book called 48 Days to the Work You Love by Dan Miller.
Right.
And I read that book in like one sitting and I was ready to go after that. So in a 3 year period, I ended up self-publishing a book that didn't sell right away, but then I figured out how to build an audience, which is what we're talking about today. And my books at this point have now sold over 100,000 copies. I got the book deal with the major publisher because of all the exposure that I gotten through these podcasts and these blogs and publications. I got some invitations to come speak, and I've traveled all over the world, all kinds of cool countries to go speak. I quit the job that I hated, that business. We paid off all the debt, 100% of the debt paid off debt free. And 14 months ago, or 16 months ago, we moved our family here to Maui, Hawaii from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And so I wake up every day, I write. If I were to take this screen and take you out there, you'd see an ocean view. And that's what I do. I wake up every day, write, speak, coach, and I love life.
That's awesome, man. Respect, first of all, for being able to do that and bring your family out there with you. That's huge, man. In terms of the building the audience, let's break that down, because I know a lot of people that are listening in are probably wondering. Now, this was I guess this was a two-pronged strategy, because you had the podcast. I think you said you did, when I went back and did some research, you got on 80 different podcasts, and then you did 50 guest posts, and that was over a 12-month period.
Yes. So I spent all of 2011 I figured out that if I was going to build this thing, where a lot of people go wrong, a lot of authors, speakers, coaches, is that they have no audience.
Right.
They have the thing, the book, the coaching packages, the beautiful website, all that good stuff, but they have no audience to see it. So I said I was going to spend less time on the things and more time on building the audience. So I started with the guest posting because I'm a writer first and foremost. And what I did was I started with the blogs that I knew that I read every day. Michael Hyatt's, Dan Miller, John Acuff, Jeff Goins, all these guys. And I didn't know anything about anything. So I just wrote an article sent it to him and said, "Will you run this?" um, those guys back then, they didn't have, maybe I don't know if they weren't as popular, if they didn't have any filters or what, but like I could actually communicate with Michael Hyatt. Like it
Wow.
was me emailing Michael and he's emailing back and says, "Hey, change this and this, and then I can run this." So that's how it worked in 2012. That wouldn't happen today. You're going to get his VA, you're going to get the team.
Right.
So it's a little bit different. But back then, I could do that. Then after I landed the people that I knew, what I did was I just started Googling like top 100 self improvement blogs. And what I found is that there's somebody somewhere that has put together a list of like the top blogs that you want to be on. Somebody has a list. They broke it down by Alexa score. They broke it down by traffic. They've done the homework for you. So what I did was just cherry pick off of that list, and I sent out 80 guest posts in 2012, and I landed 50 of them. So
Right.
all year, I had a guest post almost every single week, sometimes multiple times a week. And then the podcasting was kind of similar. I started with the shows that I knew that I liked. I started with like the big boys first. I went after like the Pat Flynn's and the
What you got on
John
him?
Lee Dumas's. Yeah, I got on Pat Flynn 4 years later. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah, it didn't happen, and it didn't happen back then.
Right. Right. Right.
But, but back then, it was, I found out podcasting is a little bit different animal because guest posts, you can let the writing speak for yourself, right? So
Right.
somebody could read the article and they could say, yes, this is good enough to run. Podcasting is a little bit different because you want to be sure the person's not going to come on and stumble around or sound like, whatever. So it's a little, podcasting is more about the relationships. So, podcasting, I started on all of the sites that you could find podcasts. So, I started like on Blog Talk Radio, and I would kind of scour that. And I signed up for the Horror Reporter, Help a Reporter Out. They send you an email every day letting you know what shows are looking for what kind of guest. The problem with the Horror Reporter is that it's like mainstream media. So there's a ton of competition. But
Right.
I was able to successfully get like a few really, really like a mention on a Huffington Post article, a mention on Secret Entourage, which I still have a relationship today, by the way, which is a killer organization. A mention in like an NBC article. So I was able to leverage that and then even get on a couple of shows from there. And then also there's a service called Radio Guest List. It kind of works like a Horror Reporter, but it's specifically for shows and podcasts. So I got a ton from Radio Guest List, just like a ton of shows from that thing. And every day I would just share my story, share where I was at. I wasn't quite here yet, but I had done a few things. So I would share my story and I got a bunch of shows that way. And then it was just a matter of going to iTunes and kind of cherry picking shows, like putting in my keywords, seeing what shows popped up, and just straight up cold pitch the podcaster.
Right. And what was in that pitch, right? Because I know you said this was kind of like you just went after it. What did you pitch? Because if I'm thinking correctly, did you have the articles published then, and then you could say, "Hey, I was in Huffington Post. Let me be on your show. I'm kind of a
No,
big deal."
no, this was way pre. I didn't get into the Huffington Post till 2014. So
Okay,
this
so
was
those those
2012.
those mentions were from the podcast that you were on.
The what I leveraged was anything that I had at the time. So 2012, I had done Michael Hyatt. I guest posted for him in
Ah,
March of that year, so I leveraged that. I also
okay.
had guest posted for Dan Miller, so I leveraged that. But more so, what I leveraged was my story. I would start the email with like some research about the podcaster, like their show, and I would say, "Hey, I loved this episode about fly fishing." And it was great. And I'll tell you why I love the fly fishing episode because my grandpa took me fly fishing and blah blah blah. I would do specific research to that podcaster. Every single one of them, I would
Right.
research something.
Which took a lot
Took
of work.
took a lot of work, but they knew that I was paying attention.
Right.
And
It
then I
wasn't a
would
canned pitched email.
no, not a where you don't even get the name right. Like, hello, sir, this is so and so. Like, I get those all the time now. Like, copy and paste error.
Right.
did specific research. Then I hit them with my story. Up to that point, I hadn't sold books or anything like that. I was just a guy who was working through debt, working through losing weight. I shared that I'm on this journey and I'm going to do this and I want to help those that are on the journey as well. So that's kind of the approach that I took. And then I gave them some talking points like these are some things we could talk about. These are the questions that they could answer. My bio picture, I made it like a no brainer for them where they can just get that email. They have all the information they need, and boom, they're good to go. Some said no, some said yes. You could go to sidehustlenation.com and there's a post called Three Reasons Why Guest Posting Sucks. And that's by Nick Loper, podcaster, Side
Right.
Hustle
Nick's a
Nation.
good guy.
But on that episode, or on that post, he has a screenshot of the pitch that I sent him, the cold pitch I sent him. He screenshotted it and he went through why he thought it was a good pitch. He has it from way back when he saved it. So if you want to see like the exact pitch that I use, Nick's got one up on there.
Right. We'll put that in the lab reports. So does Nick fly fish, by the way?
No.
So that was the strategy. It sounds like you were very deliberate, right? You found something that connected. So you had to go back and listen to like an actual episode to see if there was something there that you resonated with, that you connect with them with, and then you reached out to them and you crafted it. You crafted an email for that, and then you reached out to them, and then your story. You inserted your story in there.
Exactly. It surprises me how there's all the information is there. If you want to know something, it's there. But it surprises me how little effort sometimes we put into this kind of stuff. We just kind of send something out there half-hearted and hope it sticks. When the reality is you can increase your chances dramatically with just a little bit of research.
Right. And you're going to have to do the work anyway, is, kind of my philosophy. So why not do the work? Why not
Well, I
do it
mean,
right when you first reach out?
those 80 podcasts and those 50 guest posts brought 500,000 visitors to my website in 2012.
Right.
That brought business. By the end of that year, I had a business that was making $5,000 a month. And it made me feel confident I could quit my day job. It added to the book sales. It gave me speaking opportunities. That exposure, like even now, I'm friends with Vernon, so he sees this on my Facebook page. The exposure now it's at a higher level. So now I write for the Huffington Post and
Right.
Entrepreneur Magazine and Fox News. It's at the next level. The exposure that brings now, like I just signed a contract last week to speak at 2 international events that are going to pay for my flight, hotel, and put $5,000 in my pocket. And that just comes from the articles that they read there. So you cannot underestimate that exposure.
And in terms of the articles, what was the breakdown for that? Because I know you said you did 50 guest posts. Did you write all these and then you went and pitched these people? Did you? I think I heard in an interview that you actually went and studied the actual articles that were on the site, and then you wrote your articles based on the format of that. Correct?
Exactly. That's the best way to do it because you can, a lot of times when I started, I wrote something and I'm like, where can I send this? And then I realized if I sent it somewhere and it wasn't written for that place, that person's going to see it and it's going to be a no go.
Right.
And so once I studied the style, the tone, and all that, I was far more successful when I started doing it that way.
And how do you? What would you? What's the? Can you give us a playbook or a lab report on that? So you get like a do you get like 50 of the top blogs for your niche, or are you going to just anywhere to where people will take your writing to just talk about anything to get your foot in the door so you build that portfolio? Or are you going super specific to your niche?
I'm going pretty specific to my niche. I help. My little tagline is I help people create freedom in their health, their work, and their relationships. So it's kind of three components.
You can write about.
So I'm gonna go for I'm gonna write relationship articles, articles about work, and when I say freedom in your work, I mean online business, which is what I love, location independence, and then your health. So when I targeted blogs that specifically talked about either of those things. And when I targeted that place for work, health, and relationships, I wrote an article accordingly. I use the same strategy now with publications. When I want to write about freedom in work, I'll do that on Addicted to Success Entrepreneur Magazine. When I want to write about freedom in your health, I'll do that on Mind Body Green or sometimes the Huffington Post. When I want to talk about freedom in your relationships, I'll do that on Ask Men, on Good Men Project, and some other places that I write for. So these are specifically targeted. I won't just get like I've had so many offers to write for sites like that are big sites, but they have nothing to do with my message, and it's completely pointless.
Right. Right. No, I like that, and because you're kind of you're kind of diversified in the fact that you're not just specifically limited to that one thing, and that gives you kind of three plays wherever you go. I can see that being three topics, different topics that you can speak on. You know, maybe those events that book you, you're not speaking at the same thing. So there's some diversification at play there. And then reaching out to the actual blogs. Are there contributors that you're reaching out to? How do you build that relationship? Because that's important, right? You don't just cold email somebody.
No, you start on social media, preferably Twitter, because Twitter is the one place where you can connect with everybody. So you start tweeting, retweeting, sharing their stuff. You start on their blog. So if it's a blogger, you're going to comment on their blog if they have comments. If it's an editor at a publication, you're going to comment. That editor also has rights for that publication. You're going to start commenting on their stuff. And then you're going to kind of notice their style. So like when if it's writing, you're looking at how long are the articles, what tone are they written in? Are they written in first person, third person? What are the page breaks? What do they look like? Is it a listicle? Does it list out numbers, or is it going to be more of a free flowing article? That's kind of what you're looking at. If it's a podcaster, what style of podcast do they have? Are the questions all canned? Are they all going to be the same type of questions, or do they prefer more of a conversation? And if it's more of a conversation, then then maybe a couple things to help guide that conversation would be beneficial. So it's understanding the style.
Right. No, I love that, man. Yeah, you definitely have it broken down to a science. Now, what are you working on right now? I know you just had a book that came out with our buddy Jared Easley.
Yeah, the book is called Stop Chasing Influencers: The True Path to Building Your Business and Living Your Dream. It comes out in January of 2016.
So it's not even
So
out yet.
not even out yet. We
I
had just
can't
had
even
a
get it.
you can't even get we had a few copies at Podcast Movement just because of those are Jared's peeps and our publisher was there.
Right.
Um, but yeah, that book is just a book that kind of talks about what we talked about here. Don't chase anybody. We know that connecting with an influencer can be great for your business if it even happens, right? There's too
Right.
many people trying it. Don't chase anybody, build influence on your own. And then the second half of the book is this is how you do it. This is how you write for the largest websites in the world, create a successful podcast, book paid speaking, book paid consulting, host your own event, like a whole bunch of strategy stuff where people that are reading this, they're like, crap, like you put all this in one book. And we're like, yeah, dude, we're not playing.
You should charge her. I should have charged y'all more for that. No, it's I get it. It's you're delivering that value, man. And I see, you helping out a lot of people in the community. I really admire what you're doing, giving back and paying it forward, man. That's super cool. Really quick before we get out of here, what's the best way for people to reach out to you if they want to get more info or just connect with you? The Twitter, Facebook?
You could head to kimanziconstable.com. That's KIMZICONSTABLE. Or Google it because you're not going to find that many of us.
And you are really a Taylor Swift fan. Is that correct?
Oh man, I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan. Like I was speaking at a conference in Las Vegas last month. I flew from Maui here in Maui to Vegas. Then I went from Vegas to Louisville, Kentucky to see her perform. I was in the second row. She came out like as soon as I saw her on the stage, she was like right there, like within reach. And
I
I
think
just
she
started
winked at you.
crying.
I think she winked at you.
Oh man, dude, I just started crying. Like there's two 14-year-old girls by me, they're cheering, they're like, go Taylor. And I'm just sitting there like that's Taylor Swift. That's like her right there. So I'm a huge fan.
Dude, that is hilarious. Hilarious. Can't knock your hustle, man. That is hilarious. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Kimanzi Constable, thank you for joining us on the show today, brother. I really appreciate you stopping by and dropping knowledge in the lab today, and looking forward to what you to see what you guys do next, man.
Peace.